Hi everyone. So I think Katie definitely gave us a lot to think about, and I think it's pretty clear that we can relate this reading to a lot of readings, not only that we've done in this class, but actually ones that we've done for Professor Johnson in our art criticism class. And so I'll be bringing up a couple of those readings um, when I talk as well. Um, so I wanted to first focus on Katie's question about this term anachronic, because I think that gives us a lot to think about. So I'm just going to reread the quote in full that defines anachronic on page 13. So the authors write, quote, "The work of art when it is late, when it repeats, when it hesitates, when it remembers, but also when it projects a future or an ideal is anachronic. We introduce this term as an alternative to anachronistic, a judgmental term that carries with it the historicist assumption that every event and every object has its proper location within objective and linear time. From a historicist point of view, an artifact that has been unmoored from its secure anchorage in linear time and has drifted into an alien historical context is an anachronism. So like Gell and Fabian, the authors are sort of critical of thinkers who try to categorize time as linear and who place art objects in particular time periods. So I understood this is that they want art objects to be able to move more freely in time. And I think it's important to consider Fabian's denial of coevalness here. So this idea that if we can place art objects in a specific time, we also have the power to use time as a weapon against an other by placing art objects and their makers in a different time than those who study them. Um, so we've sort of talked about how this can be a very violent act. I want to think about another quote that Katie drew our attention to on page 8 when the authors are unpacking observations made by Simone de Beauvoir. So they say, quote, "Anyone can see that the possible gain in legitimacy conferred by the mark of time is easily offset by the risk of loss of aura through fixing in time. To fix an image or temple in time is to reduce it to human proportions," unquote. So I was reminded by Walter Benjamin's article that we read for Professor Johnson last semester, The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. He also talks a lot about this same term, aura, that Nagel and Wood use pretty purposefully, I'm sure. So to Benjamin, an artwork aura is sort of like its original essence, and it's the thing that places an art object in a specific time and place, or time and space. And an aura cannot be reproduced. So it seems to me that Nagel and Wood are problematizing this concept of aura. They accept that an artwork has one, but challenge the idea that placing it in a specific time um, throughout history is what conjures this aura or what defines it. So they see an aura as something that's more like incomprehensible to audiences and something that's timeless. So I'd like to know how you all feel about this comparison and if you agree or not, and just maybe how they understand this concept of aura. So also my cat is making weird noises. Um, so the language here also makes me think about another reading we did for Professor Johnson, George Kubler's book from 1962 called The Shape of Time, Remarks on the History of Things. Um, Kubler also has a problem with this biological or evolutionary language associated with time and the idea that historians assign stages to art history. Kubler argues that art objects exist in sequences because history is open ended and continuously moving. So he gives the example that indigenous artworks and some tribal artworks are part of an open sequence because contemporary artists continue to expand upon these traditions. Um, So I think this idea of artworks existing in open sequences is pretty similar to Nigel and Wood's definition of artworks being anachronic, and that they are referential and can exist in multiple places in time. So, as for Katie wondering sort of what might examples be of anachronic works, I thought of paintings from artists like Kerry James Marshall and Kehinde Wiley, who both are directly referencing Renaissance paintings, but replace traditional figures with communities and with people who have been historically colonized. So Kerry James Marshall's School of Beauty, School of Culture from 2012 is a reference to Hans Holbein's Ambassadors from 1533. And Wiley's Napoleon leading the army over the Alps is a direct response to David's portrait of Napoleon from the 18th century. So these works sort of recall paintings that we view as positioned in a very specific time period, but very much alter them and sort of have this contemporary twist, which I kind of understood as this idea of artworks being anachronic, that they can reference different time periods and exist on different points within sort of like a cycle of time. And I think that's important too to this, that they were sort of looking at time as more cyclical, that it's about reproduction and reuse rather than time as linear, which I talked about why that's sort of problematic to them earlier in the video. So hopefully this all made sense. I'd be curious to see what you all think about these comparisons to readings that we did for our art criticism class, and yeah, what you have to say. So thank you, and I'll talk to you guys soon.